If you're anything like me, you have a birthday once a year. If you're anything like my ex-girlfriend, you have something called a half birthday, where you have to do something. I love birthdays. Growing up, I would get a bounce house. It was cool. You'd get your friends over and you'd wrestle with them. Can't do that anymore, but I always wondered, how can I turn a birthday into something that helps, that creates community? How can I do something for my birthday that'll help create a sense of belonging for other people? So I started to think, man, what if I asked my closest friends for my birthday to show up at my house and to tell me a story? I love stories because whenever we tell stories to one another, we're conveying things that we don't convey just by having a regular conversation. Whenever you hear a story from someone, you can get a sense because you see them in this narrative that's not here, and you can get a sense of what they hope for, what they believe in, what they're afraid of. You ever had that moment with someone you've known for a long time? Maybe you're married to them and you're at a dinner party or something like that, and they tell this story and you go, I never knew that. I didn't know that about you. What a gift that is. So I thought, okay, I want to have all my friends come over and I'm going to give them a prompt. I'm going to say, come and tell me a story about a time that you changed that I would have never otherwise known before. Because my birthday's in October, it's like autumn and leaves are changing. Not in Texas. In October, Halloween is still hot. Like, all the kids walking around, they're sweating through their Halloween costumes. I remember whenever I was younger, I went as a mummy for Halloween. I was wrapped in all this gauze, and I sweat straight through it. I went as a mummy, but I wasn't allowed to say that I was a mummy because I went to this Christian charter school. So my mom said I could do it, I could wear the gauze, but I had to say I was Lazarus. And then one year, Power Rangers were so cool, and I had to go as King David. And my friends were like, who are you? Okay, so how can I make this as cool as possible? Man, I'm King David. I am on the hunt for Bathsheba, and I'm gonna get her, I'm gonna kill her husband, and everything's gonna be fine. God's gonna forgive me. You're a blue Power Ranger. You're not near as complex as me. So birthdays around Halloween. And in order to have folks come and tell stories, I also ask that they bring a pumpkin and a bottle of wine, and they bring this story about change. Tell me about a time that you believed something deeply, but then for some reason or another, you changed your mind. What was that about? Tell me about a time that you had this story that you told yourself in your head that was inhibiting you from living as well as you could, and you finally figured out how to stop the story. What changed? Give me those kinds of stories. So folks come, we go in the backyard and we carve these pumpkins and we drink some wine. When they carve the pumpkins, I ask them, in the pumpkin, go ahead and carve like a speaking aid for your story. Illustrate something from your story in your carving. And so then we go back inside, I give everyone a candle and we sit in a circle, and everyone, they light the candle and they drop it into the pumpkin. And then they tell their story, and we go around in a circle. One year, a girl, she carved an iceberg in her pumpkin. She told a story about how she went to go see Titanic with this boy, and she was sure that it was going to be their first kiss. And he didn't kiss her, and so she asked him to go to Titanic the next week, and they watched the movie again, and she kissed him. I never saw Titanic. I wasn't allowed to. Kate Winslet gets naked. I still haven't seen it, I'm afraid. Like, I know if I ever watched it, like my mom would be cooking or something and she'd be like, he's seen her. One time a woman said, I'm not going to use a knife. I'm gonna use an ice pick. And she poked holes all around the pumpkin. So when she dropped the candle in, it looked like starlight. And it was chicken pox is what she did. And she told a story about how her mom had just passed. And she looked back on that, when she had chicken pox when she was younger. And that was like this memory that she held when her mom took care of her. She held on to that. And then this one girl one year, she carved a T into the pumpkin, Texas Rangers. She told this story about when she went to the Texas Rangers game for the first time with her dad. Sunscreen all over, hot dog. It was awesome. And then she got home, and her dad and mom sat her down and said, we're gonna get a divorce. You know, she doesn't like baseball anymore. I remember she walked out, though, and she grabbed me by the arm, and she said, man, my boyfriend told me about these birthdays of yours. I didn't want to come. She said, I'm so glad that I did, though. Yeah, I think, like, you look back in history, you know, the thinkers, a lot of them have, like, their theory of what makes us work, the theory of what we want. Freud says we want sex. Machiavelli says we want power at all costs. I like what Brene Brown says. Some of you might know it. She says, well, we want to belong. We want to feel like we belong somewhere. So if I'm you sitting in my chair today, I can't help but think, yeah, man, that's awesome. How do you do that? How do you create a sense of belonging? How do you get people to a place where they're willing to share something that hurts, even though they know it's going to be worth it? We don't like to do those things, but you know it's always worth it at the end. You're out of town, and your buddy from high school lives in that town, and all you want to do is go to your hotel because you got an early flight the next morning, but you choose to go meet him, and you're kicking yourself the whole way there because you just wish you could go to sleep, but then afterward you drive home, and what do you tell yourself? Yeah, I'm glad I did that. So how do we help folks move into a place where they feel like they belong enough to be vulnerable and to say things that might hurt? But those things that they say that might hurt, that do hurt, is the only way for healing to occur for individuals and for a group. And so when it comes down to thinking about, okay, so what's the right way for me to get people to belong? Unfortunately, guys, there's not a right way. And that's kind of frustrating sometimes. But then again, I like to throw out this right and wrong language when it comes to the intangible work of building a community. Because if you don't feel like you do it right, then what does that mean? You only got one other option. Oh man, I'm doing it wrong. So what if we said, let's get away from that dualistic thinking. What if we said, I'm going to do it as well as I can. And some days that means that I show up and it was a terrible day and I'm real about it. I'm vulnerable first. You got to model that stuff. Be the first one to share. So what if you just did it well? I've kind of learned one thing, is I've twisted my friends' arms into doing things that are really uncomfortable. And that's that when it comes to building community, when it comes to creating belonging in the workplace, in a classroom, in a small group, there's no rules. There's only relationships. Because rules, guess what? I can implement a strategy without having a heart. I can ask discussion questions without having a soul. But I can't fake a relationship. People can smell that a mile away. Here's the challenge, though. Man, that requires a lot more hard work, doesn't it? It might be easier to gather with folks and go, okay, cool, here's the workbook. Do you ever remember a teacher from school who you loved, who gave you a bunch of worksheets? That wasn't the teacher that you hearken back to when you think, oh, they turned the lights on for me. Oh, they believed in me. I just recently shifted jobs. I was working with a consulting firm for about 5 years, and I was traveling around a lot. And I'm kind of looking for a life transition. I'm a little lost right now, to be honest. So I took a year contract with a buddy to help him get a nonprofit off the ground. I'm 6 months into it. So we had my 6-month review last week. And he said, so how do you think you've done? I said, man, to be honest with you, I feel like you're getting me at about 50% right now. I'm struggling to know where my career is going after this. I'm struggling to know if I'm doing the right work with the students that we're serving. I'm struggling to know if I'm meeting your expectations. I'm struggling because you're my friend, and I also work for you, and we don't have that much money, and is it worth your investment? I'm really wrestling right now. He said something so wise. He said, Reagan, what if wrestling means that you're doing it right? What if wrestling means that you're doing it right? Because guess what? Because you're wrestling, that means that you care. Because you're wrestling, that means that you're invested. That means that you're waking up early in the morning and you're writing in your journal. It means that you're calling your dad and you're asking for advice. That means you're leaning on community. That means you're asking for help. I'd much rather you be wrestling. That means you're in it. Not everybody's going to do a pumpkin carving event for their small group. Try it. It's cool. But there has to be a way that is authentic to you, that you can bring people together and create a safe place for them to feel like they belong. And it's hard work. And guess what the reward for hard work is? More hard work. We're here because we want to wrestle with this. We're here because we want to change our community. We're here because no one's figured it out yet. You ever think of that? No one's solved it. So that's why we're here, is to wrestle with it and to keep trying and to take them out for coffee and to take them out to a park and do an offsite, to do a field trip, to take care of their kids. Wrestle with it. Keep trying. Adjust. Recalibrate. Try again. I think the world would be a lot better of a place, don't you, if people felt like they belonged? Think about all the things that we could solve. Think about how much hatred would disappear if people felt safe enough to go, I'm okay. I admire the work that you guys do. The hard work of creating a community where people can come and feel like I spent my entire week marching to this meeting tonight, this afternoon, to be with these people. Keep wrestling. It's worth it.